Well, I have something to tell you from the bottom of my heart.
Oh,
Thank you.
oh, is it hot in here?
He was the kind of actor who felt like family. For millions of us watching at home during the 1990 era, he wasn't just a character on a sitcom, he was the best friend we all wanted, full of life, laughter, and an energy that leaped off the screen. But behind that infectious smile was a man fighting to build a legacy far bigger than Hollywood gave him credit for. Lamont Bentley had the world at his feet, transitioning from a beloved comedic star to a serious dramatic talent. And then, in the blink of an eye, he was gone. It wasn't a slow decline. It was a tragic, sudden stop that left an entire generation asking, why him? Today, we aren't just looking back at a sitcom star. We are honoring a father, a son, and a dreamer whose final act was cut devastatingly short. Let's get into his story right now. Let me know where you're watching this from in the comments. Grab yourself a warm drink, maybe a cup of water or tea, sit back, and let's start this journey together. The story of Lamont Bentley began far away from the palm trees and red carpets of Hollywood. He was born on the 25th of October, 1973, in the heart of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This was a city known for its industrial grit and cold winters, but inside the Bentley household, there was a different kind of warmth. From the very beginning, it was clear that Lamont was not just another kid on the block. He carried a light within him that seemed too big for the quiet streets of the Midwest. His mother, Lois, often recalled that he didn't just walk into a room. He announced his presence with energy that pulled everyone toward him. Growing up in the late 1970 and early 1980 era, Lamont was the definition of a natural entertainer. He was the kid who could turn a boring afternoon into a comedy show, earning him affectionate nicknames like Cuz or simply my guy from the friends who adored him. He wasn't just funny, he was magnetic. There is a touching detail from his childhood that speaks volumes about his destiny. Long before anyone knew his name, young Lamont would sit at a table and practice writing his autograph over and over again. He didn't know how he would get there, or when it would happen, but he possessed that rare, unshakable faith that someday the world would ask for his signature. But talent needs the right soil to grow, and for Lamont Bentley, that meant leaving everything he knew behind. The artistic spirit ran deep in his bloodline. His mother, Lois Bentley, was an aspiring R&B singer herself, a woman who understood the power of a dream. In the early 1980 era, she made the bold decision to pack up their lives and move the family to Los Angeles to pursue her singing career. For a 13-year-old boy, this was a massive shift. He was trading the familiar community of Milwaukee for the sprawling, competitive concrete jungle of Los Angeles. When they arrived in California, the reality was far from glamorous. They were chasing dreams in a city that swallows them whole every day. Lamont would tag along with his mother to her auditions, sitting in waiting rooms filled with nervous hope. But something remarkable started to happen. Even when he was just there to support her, people in those rooms would gravitate toward him. He would be cracking jokes, making strangers laugh, and lightening the heavy atmosphere of the casting offices. It wasn't long before someone looked at the funny kid in the corner and told him the words that would change his life. You should try acting. He took that advice to heart, but the road to success was paved with hard work, not luck. To keep money in his pocket and help his family, Lamont took on the kind of jobs that keep you humble. He worked at a fish market, dealing with the smell and the long hours, and later found work at a movie theater and a grocery store. Imagine that for a moment. The boy who would later become a TV icon was once the person sweeping the popcorn off the floor, looking up at the screen and whispering to himself that his turn was coming. His dedication was absolute. He was so focused on his craft that he eventually made the difficult choice to drop out of high school to pursue acting full-time. It was a gamble that would have terrified most parents, but Lamont Bentley was not afraid of the risk. He was auditioning every chance he got, treating every rejection as a stepping stone. His first taste of the industry came in 1986. He landed a gig in a commercial for Starburst candy, followed by a public service announcement about fatherhood. These weren't superstar roles, but they were a start. They were proof that the kid from Milwaukee could stand in front of a camera and belong there. Those early days in Los Angeles defined his character. He learned that talent might get you in the door, but it was the hustle, the days at the fish market, and the nights spent dreaming that would keep you there. Before the red carpets and flashing lights, There was just a dream, and someone brave enough to chase it until it became real. By the time the calendar turned to 1994, Lamont Bentley was no longer just the funny kid from Milwaukee. He was a working actor in the competitive trenches of Los Angeles. The transition from commercials to legitimate television roles is often where many dreams die. But for Lamont, it was where he truly came alive. His first significant break came when he was cast in the Fox network series South Central. This was not just another sitcom. It was a gritty, raw look at life in Los Angeles, starring incredible talents like Larenz Tate and a young Jennifer Lopez. For Lamont Bentley, South Central was more than a job. It was a proving ground. Although he was part of an ensemble cast, his natural charisma made it impossible to ignore him. He brought a sense of authenticity to the screen that you simply cannot teach in acting school. However, the harsh reality of Hollywood soon set in. Despite the show's cultural impact and the talent involved, South Central was canceled after just one season due to low ratings. It was a controversial time, with figures like Jesse Jackson even calling for boycotts, believing that the network was unfairly cutting shows featuring black casts. For a young actor, having your big break snatched away so quickly could have been devastating. It was the kind of setback that makes people pack their bags and go home. But Lamont didn't flinch. He understood early on that in this business, resilience is just as important as talent. He dusted himself off and went right back into the audition rooms. If 1994 was a lesson in heartbreak, 1995 was a masterclass in versatility. He landed the role of Crazy K in the classic horror anthology film Tales from the Hood. This was a pivotal moment in his artistic journey. Up until then, many viewed him as the comic relief, the guy who could deliver a punchline with a smile. But as Crazy K, Lamont Bentley tapped into something darker and more intense. He played a cold-blooded character with a chilling conviction that surprised critics and audiences alike. It proved that he wasn't just a sitcom actor, he was a dramatic force capable of navigating complex, heavy emotions. Following that performance, he became a familiar face on television screens across America. He secured guest spots on popular shows like Family Matters, The Parenthood, and The Client. He was everywhere, working tirelessly, building his resume brick by brick. He was the kind of actor who could slide into any scene and make it better. A reliable talent who brought energy to every set he walked onto. But while the guest roles kept the lights on and the resume growing, he was still searching for that one defining role, the character that would allow him to fully unpack his gifts and stay in the hearts of viewers for years to come. He had proven he could work. Now he was ready to lead. The year 1996 marked the moment when preparation finally met opportunity. Ralph Farquhar, the creator who had seen Lamont Bentley shine in the short-lived South Central, had not forgotten the young actor's magnetic potential. When Farquhar began developing a new sitcom for the UPN network titled Moesha, starring the R&B sensation Brandy Norwood, he knew exactly who he wanted for the pivotal role of the neighbor. The character was Hakeem Campbell, a role that, on paper, could have easily been a one-dimensional sidekick. He was the hungry friend, the constant visitor, the comedic foil. But in the hands of Lamont, Hakeem became something far more profound. He became the heartbeat of the show. From the very first episode, the chemistry was undeniable. Lamont Bentley didn't just play the role, he inhabited it with a warmth and rhythm that made him an instant fan favorite. While Brandy was the star, Lamont was the scene stealer. He brought a unique blend of street-smart humor and genuine vulnerability that resonated deeply with audiences across America. He wasn't just a character on a screen. He felt like the best friend we all grew up with, the guy who would raid your refrigerator but would also be the first one to defend you when things got tough. The show Moesha exploded into a cultural phenomenon, anchoring the UPN lineup and defining the teen experience for a generation. And right at the center of that storm of success was Lamont. The public reaction was overwhelming. Suddenly, the kid who used to practice his autograph in Milwaukee was signing thousands of them. He was no longer just a working actor. He was a star. But what truly defined this era of his life was not the fame itself, but how he chose to carry it. Success often changes people, hardening them or creating distance. But for Lamont Bentley, it seemed to do the opposite. He used his newfound platform to reach back. He famously established the Lamont Bentley Foundation, an organization dedicated to distributing funds to local nonprofit groups and helping underprivileged youth. While the industry celebrated the ratings, those close to him saw the man. He never forgot where he came from. He returned to Milwaukee frequently, not as a distant celebrity, but as a community leader and a friend. There was a sense of pride in his success that was mixed with a deep sense of responsibility. He understood that his face on that television screen meant something to the kids watching in neighborhoods just like the one he grew up in. He was proof that you could make it out, that you could be talented, successful, and still keep your soul intact. As the seasons of Moesha rolled on, Lamont Bentley solidified his place in Hollywood. He had achieved the dream he chased when he was 13 years old. He had the fame, the money, and the adoration of millions. Yet, even in this golden hour of his career, there was a sense that he was just getting started, that Hakeem Campbell was merely the introduction to a much larger story that he was eager to tell. He had captured our hearts with laughter, but he was quietly preparing to show the world the full depth of his artistry. By the time the new millennium arrived, Lamont Bentley was flying high. The show Moesha had enjoyed a remarkable run, spanning 6 seasons and over 127 episodes, becoming a defining pillar of black television history. But for Lamont, being Hakeem Campbell was just the beginning. He was evolving. He was no longer just the lanky kid next door. He had grown into a handsome, charismatic man who commanded attention. The industry took notice of this transformation. Sister magazine, a major publication of the time, even named him one of the top 20 African-American hunks in the entertainment industry. It was a title that signaled his shift from a comedic sidekick to a legitimate leading man status. The year 2001 was a particularly massive year for his career trajectory. While many television actors struggle to make the leap to the big screen, Lamont Bentley did it with style. He landed the role of C. Money in the classic film The Wash, starring alongside hip-hop titans Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. This wasn't just a cameo. It was a role that placed him shoulder to shoulder with cultural icons. In a movie filled with massive personalities, Lamont held his own. He brought a comedic timing and a street-smart edge that proved he could hang with the heavyweights. For fans watching, it felt like a validation our favorite TV neighbor was now a movie star, sharing the screen with legends. But his artistic hunger didn't stop at acting. Lamont Bentley was a man of the hip-hop generation, and he had music in his soul. He wasn't just an actor pretending to understand the culture. He was an active participant in it. During this peak era, he formed a positive hip-hop group called Uprees with a close friend. He took this passion seriously, collaborating with established artists like Coolio and drawing interest from major record labels. He could rap, he could act, and he could make you laugh. He was the definition of a triple threat in Hollywood. At this moment in time, everything seemed possible. He was young, he was respected, and he had money in his pocket. The struggle of the fish market days seemed like a distant memory. He was driving nice cars, attending the hottest parties, and receiving love from fans everywhere he went. He had successfully avoided the child star curse that consumed so many of his peers. Instead of fading away as Moesha ended, he was ramping up, diversifying his portfolio, and preparing for the next level of stardom. He stood on top of the world, looking out at a horizon that looked bright, promising, and endless. However, in Hollywood, the brightest lights often cast the longest shadows. While the public loved him for the laughs, Lamont Bentley was quietly fighting to prove he possessed a depth that went far beyond the sitcom format. In 2001, the same year Moesha came to an end, he took on a role that would terrify most actors, playing the legendary Tupac Shakur. He was cast as the rap icon in the VH1 biopic Too Legit, the MC Hammer story. It is a detail often forgotten in history books, but Lamont was essentially the first actor to portray Tupac on a major screen before the biopics became a trend. He didn't just do an impression. He captured the intensity and the fire of the rapper. It was a performance that should have opened every door in town. Yet, strangely, it remains an underrated footnote in his career. This period also marked the beginning of a subtle, uncomfortable shift. When Moesha was canceled by UPN after ratings dropped, the safety net vanished. For 6 years, Lamont Bentley had a steady home on set, but now he faced the brutal reality that confronts so many black actors after a hit show ends: the box. The industry loved Hakeem Campbell, but they weren't sure if they were ready to embrace Lamont Bentley as a serious dramatic lead. He had to work twice as hard to shake off the sitcom neighbor persona. He took roles in gritty projects like Spike Lee's Sucker-Free City and the crime drama A Day in the Life, acting alongside heavy hitters like Mekhi Phifer. He was grinding, showing his range, proving he could be hood, serious, and dangerous. Yet, there was a lingering sense of unfairness. Why wasn't he celebrated like some of his peers who crossed over into massive blockbuster fame? He had the charisma, the looks, and the raw talent, but the superstar status seemed to hover just out of reach. It raises the painful question: did Hollywood truly value him, or did they only value the specific version of him that made them laugh? Despite the accolades and the steady work, Lamont Bentley was navigating an industry that often forgets its heroes the moment the applause dies down. He was a man in transition, standing at a crossroads between his glorious past and a future he was desperately trying to write on his own terms. He wasn't giving up, far from it. He was ready for his second act, unaware that fate had already written a different ending. The tragedy of Lamont Bentley is not that he lost his way, but that he was taken just as he was finding a new path. On the night of the 18th of January 2005, everything in his life seemed to be pointing upward. There were no signs of trouble, no public spiraling, and no cries for help. In fact, his manager, Susan Ferris, later described him as being in a great place both emotionally and physically. He was optimistic, energized, and deeply focused on his work. That evening, he attended a screening for an independent short film titled Shards, in which he had a significant role. It was a night of celebration, of artistry, and of looking forward to what the new year would bring. He was surrounded by peers, doing what he loved, unaware that the final curtain was about to fall. As the clock ticked past midnight, turning into the early hours of January 19, Lamont Bentley got into his Mercedes-Benz to head home. He was driving alone on Highway 118 near Simi Valley, a stretch of road that winds through the quiet darkness of Southern California. It is haunting to imagine him in those final moments, perhaps listening to music, perhaps thinking about the applause from the screening, or simply eager to get back to his bed. But in a split second, the quiet drive turned into a nightmare. According to witness reports, as he approached the off-ramp at a high speed, his vehicle failed to stop. The sequence of events that followed is heartbreaking in its violence and suddenness. His car tore through a chain-link fence situated across the street and rolled down a steep embankment. The force of the impact was catastrophic. In the chaos of the crash, Lamont Bentley was ejected from the vehicle into oncoming traffic. What makes this story so difficult to tell is the cruelty of the timing. As he landed on the road, helpless and vulnerable, he was struck by 5 separate vehicles. The world didn't just stop for him. It collided with him in the most brutal way imaginable. Medics arrived at the scene, but the injuries he sustained from the blunt force were simply too severe for any miracle to overcome. At 12:23 a.m., the man who had brought so much laughter to the world was pronounced dead. He was only 31 years old. In the aftermath of such a horrific event, rumors often begin to swirl in Hollywood. People look for reasons, drugs, alcohol, or recklessness, to explain the inexplicable. But the autopsy results cleared his name completely. There were no drugs or alcohol in his system. It wasn't a vice that took him. It was a tragic, senseless accident. The bright candle, as his manager called him, had been snuffed out in the darkness of a highway, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than any grief the industry had felt in years. When the sun rose over Los Angeles that morning, the news spread like a shockwave through the city. Phone calls woke up castmates, friends, and fans, delivering the kind of message that the heart refuses to believe. Lamont Bentley was gone. For a generation that grew up watching him every week, it felt like losing a family member. The suddenness of it left no room for goodbyes, no time for closure. One moment he was the vibrant, unstoppable force we knew. The next, he was a memory. His manager, Susan Ferris, captured the collective heartbreak perfectly when she released a statement saying he was a bright candle that just got snuffed out. It was a haunting image, a light extinguished not because it had burned down, but because the wind blew too hard, too soon. The reaction from the community was one of profound grief mixed with disbelief. While Hollywood often moves on quickly, those who knew the real man could not simply turn the page. His close friend, a rapper from Oakland named Habit, was so devastated by the loss that he dedicated his entire album, titled Talk of the Town, to Lamont's memory. It was a gesture that spoke to the deep loyalty Lamont inspired in people. He wasn't just a celebrity to them, he was a brother who had stayed true to his roots, even when the cameras were off. But for the public, the loss felt personal in a different way. We realized that we would never see what Lamont Bentley would become. We would never see him age, never see him take on the roles of a father or a grandfather on screen. The potential he displayed in Tales from the Hood and the charisma he showed in The Wash were just previews of a movie that would never be finished. The silence he left behind was louder than any applause he ever received. It was the silence of a career interrupted, of a song cut off right before the chorus. In the days following the crash, the industry paused to pay its respects, but there was an underlying sense of tragedy that went beyond just one man. The cast of Moesha, who had grown up together on that set, had lost a vital piece of their puzzle. The laughter he brought to millions was replaced by a void that no rerun could fill. Lamont Bentley had spent his life chasing the spotlight, working from the fish markets to the red carpets, only to have the stage go dark at the very moment he was ready to shine the brightest. As the years have turned into decades since that fateful night on Highway 118, the legacy of Lamont Bentley has transformed into something deeply symbolic. He represents a specific golden era of black television in the 1990 and early 2000 era, a time when shows like Moesha were not just entertainment, but cultural mirrors. When we look back at his body of work today, we don't just see a comedic actor. We see a pioneer who helped define the aesthetic and energy of a generation. His portrayal of Hakeem Campbell remains a masterclass in sitcom acting. He took a character that could have been forgettable and turned him into an icon of loyalty and friendship. For many Americans who grew up during that time, Hakeem wasn't just a character. He was the friend we all wished lived next door. However, the tragedy of Lamont Bentley is often spoken of in the same breath as another fallen star of that era, Merlin Santana. The narrator of his story, and indeed many fans, often wonder where these two electric talents would be today if they were still alive. Both men were young, incredibly handsome, and possessed a raw, magnetic charisma that lit up the screen. Losing them both, Merlin to violence and Lamont to a car accident, felt like losing the future. Fredro Starr, the rapper and actor who worked with Lamont, once admitted that after Merlin passed and Lamont was gone, the reality of life's fragility hit the industry hard. It marked the end of an innocence for many young actors in Hollywood. Lamont Bentley stands as a permanent reminder of that lost generation of talent stars who had so much more to give, but were taken before they could reach their full zenith. Beyond the screen, his legacy is cemented in the community he loved. Milwaukee, the city that raised him, never forgot its native son. The mayor of Milwaukee officially honored him by declaring a Lamont Bentley Day, ensuring that his name would be spoken with pride in the streets where he once dreamed of stardom. This wasn't just a ceremonial gesture. It was a recognition of his heart. He had always given back, always returned home, and always used his platform to lift others up. He proved that you could conquer Hollywood without losing your soul or forgetting your zip code. Today, when film historians and fans revisit movies like The Wash or Tales from the Hood, there is a collective realization of just how underrated Lamont Bentley truly was. We see the nuance in his performance as Tupac Shakur, a role he tackled before it was trendy, and we realize he was a dramatic heavyweight disguised as a sitcom star. He left behind a blueprint for versatility, showing that you can make people laugh in one scene and terrify them in the next. His work hasn't aged. It has only ripened, becoming a cherished time capsule of an era that is gone but certainly not forgotten. The true weight of Lamont Bentley's absence was felt most profoundly years later, when the family he created on screen tried to come back together. In 2017, the cast of Moesha reunited on the daytime talk show The Real for a special episode. It was supposed to be a moment of nostalgia and joy, a chance to celebrate one of the most beloved sitcoms in history. But as the actors sat on that couch, the atmosphere was thick with a bittersweet emotion that was impossible to ignore. There were too many empty chairs. The reunion became a haunting reminder of how much tragedy had befallen this specific group of talented artists. It wasn't just Lamont Bentley who was missing. The cast and the audience had to grapple with the loss of Yvette Wilson, who played the beloved Andelle, the comedic giant Bernie Mac, who played Uncle Bernie, and Ricky Harris. The room felt heavy with the spirits of those who had passed. Yet, even among such significant losses, the absence of Lamont felt particularly sharp. He was the energy of the show, the youthful spark that drove so many storylines. Watching his former co-stars tear up as they reminisced was a powerful testament to the man he was behind the scenes. They weren't mourning a co-worker, they were mourning a brother. As one of the guests somberly noted during the discussion about the passing of their friends, every boot is coming, a stark reminder of our own mortality. For the public watching that reunion, and for the millions who continue to discover his work through reruns and streaming services, a new perspective has emerged. We now see Lamont Bentley not just as a star who died young, but as one of the most underrated talents of his generation. In Hollywood, the word legend is often thrown around loosely, reserved for those who win Oscars or headline blockbusters. But there is a different kind of legend, the kind that lives in the daily memories of the people. Lamont is that kind of legend. He didn't need a trophy case to prove his worth. He proved it every time he made a struggling family laugh in their living room after a long day at work. The tragedy is that the industry often moves on, replacing one star with the next, but the audience never forgets how a person made them feel. Lamont Bentley had a unique gift for making us feel seen. Whether he was playing the fool or the tough guy, there was an honesty in his eyes that cut through the screen. He may have been forgotten by the executives who greenlight movies, but he has never been forgotten by the culture. He remains a shining example of what it means to be a working actor, someone who showed up, gave everything he had, and left a mark that time cannot erase. As we look back now, we don't just ask what happened to him, we ask, why didn't we appreciate him more while he was here? Some stories in Hollywood do not have the ending they deserve. They stop mid-sentence, leaving us with questions that will never be answered and potential that will never be realized. But perhaps, measuring a life by its length is the wrong way to look at the journey of Lamont Bentley. We should measure it by the depth of the joy he created. Remember that young boy in Milwaukee we talked about at the beginning? The one sitting at his kitchen table, practicing his autograph over and over again, believing that one day the world would know his name. He was right. He made that dream a reality, not through luck, but through the kind of hustle and heart that defines the very best of us. When the cameras stopped rolling and the industry moved on, something remarkable happened. The character of Hakeem Campbell did not fade away. He stayed with us. He remained in the living rooms of families watching reruns, bringing laughter to a new generation that wasn't even born when he passed. Lamont Bentley achieved the rarest thing an artist can hope for, immortality through his work. He may have been underrated by the award shows and the studio executives, but he was never underrated by the people. To the fans, he was royalty. He was a reminder of a time when television felt like home and the stars felt like friends. It has been many years since the lights went out on Highway 118, but the warmth of his spirit is still felt. This story is not just about a tragedy, it is about gratitude. We are grateful for the laughs, grateful for the memories, and grateful that for a brief, shining moment, we got to witness his talent. He taught us that it is not about how long you stay on the stage, but how brightly you shine while you are there. And Lamont Bentley shone brighter than most. So, I want to ask you a question today. Do you think Hollywood ever gave him the respect he truly deserved? Or was he one of the many great talents who were overlooked until it was too late? I want to hear your thoughts. If this story moved you, or if you have a favorite memory of Hakeem, please leave a message for him in the comments below. Let's turn that comment section into a tribute wall for him. And if you believe that these stories deserve to be told, please hit that subscribe button and help us preserve Hollywood's most beautiful memories. We are here to ensure that legends like him are never forgotten, because as long as we speak their names, they are never truly gone.